And a Fox News alert as we await the opening arguments for this discussion today at the Supreme Court on birthright citizenship. History being made as President Trump is the first president ever to go and listen to an oral argument where he has to sit quietly, cannot post truths and things like that. We'll see how long that goes. It could go 2 to 3 hours. He doesn't have to stay the entire time. There will not be a decision made in this case today. The justices are simply hearing the oral arguments. But we might get a decision later in the day. At 9 p.m. Eastern tonight, the President of the United States will also give a primetime address on the war in Iran. And he hasn't done so yet. This will be, I'm sure, a scripted speech, a very serious speech. It's a big deal when you ask the networks to break up prime time and for the president to make this announcement tonight. What has he decided, if anything? We bring in Ben Hall, of course, senior correspondent. Thank you for being here. The war is it's over a month now. Now, most of the world is engaged in some way and anxiously awaiting to see what the president will announce tonight. There's arguments with Europe. There are concerns even with some of our Gulf allies, and there are a lot of shifting winds here. What do you think he'll say tonight?
Well, I think what's interesting is President Trump has said from the beginning that he's not going to tell Iran what he's going to do. He's not going to say whether he's putting boots on the ground. He's not going to necessarily say how long exactly this will go on, because that would give them a heads up. And so I don't think we're going to see anything specific. I don't think we're going to see an announcement that boots are going onto the ground. I think he's well aware that his words have an influence on the markets, on bringing up stock prices and bringing down the price of oil. But what I do feel that if you look at the prime objectives, first, to destroy the Iranian military, that has been done. To weaken the regime, that has been done to a certain degree. But the Straits of Hormuz are still not open. That's something that I think has to be addressed. You can't allow Iran to control that waterway. And so we have to look at options for that. You've seen the movement of US troops to the region. You've seen the thousands of soldiers who are there, the 82nd Airborne, etc. And so it does feel to me as if he may be setting the scene for something that may come, something next, whether it's seizing one of those islands in the Straits of Hormuz. But I don't think he's going to announce it. I think he wants to keep the Iranian regime on its toes. And quite often we see moves like that happen on a Friday night to give 2 days before the market's open.
Just watching Marco Rubio last night with Sean, I think he laid out the objectives. And the objectives, that you could argue, have shifted a little bit here, right? You know, he talked about taking out the Air Force, that they've largely done that, the Navy in Iran as well, their ability to produce missiles and drone production, even though they haven't taken out the entire missile supply. So we'll see how the president...
It started with unconditional surrender.
Yeah, that may
change to a certain
right, and that may develop even more tonight. What I think is very significant, though, there are numerous developments overnight from around the world that are affected by this war. The UAE either told the United States, we're going to join the war with you, or they came very close to it, and they're urging the United States, based on the Wall Street Journal reporting, to go ahead and seize one of these small islands in the Persian Gulf. In addition, the Prime Minister in London came out before the sun came up and said, this is not our war. And you've got the president suggesting that maybe the U.S. should no longer be a part of NATO. We can come back to that point in a moment here, Ben. But in Australia, the Prime Minister is telling his people to save energy. Now, I can't recall a state leader with an address like that in decades. So, point being, this is affecting a lot of countries, a lot of people as we sit here today.
Well, first of all, the UAE has now released a statement very recently saying that, in fact, they have not made that a policy to get involved militarily at this point. But we do know that countries like Saudi Arabia, Bahrain, Kuwait, who initially did not want this kind of conflict to a certain degree, now say the job has to be finished, which is what Jamie Dimon said yesterday. Now we've got this far, you can't allow Iran to imagine that it has this control, so the job has to be finished. And the question is, what is finishing this role? And I think you're right. You look at the countries that have been affected, and it is large. You look at Asian countries, the Philippines, they are bringing in real amount of limits on how much gas you can buy at the moment because of the effect on them. And President Trump is saying, you all need to get involved. You all need to come and help. They're not doing so. NATO releases letters saying, we are putting together a plan in which we might help. The EU have done the same. But it's words. They haven't actually done it. And they keep releasing these statements saying, we are looking at ways in which we can help, but they're not doing it. So look, this does affect the whole world, but I do think that we have to look at phase 2. And that is what happens when the US does eventually pull out, and that is allowing the Iranian people to overthrow their regime. That, I think, is where this has to move. You know, the regime are not going to be changed from the air, but if you can weaken them to a certain degree, and I've been getting messages from inside Iran as well, they're saying, so many of them, we need to be armed. Once the regime has been knocked down, we need to have the ability to then overthrow them ourselves. And I think that has to be phase 2.
Would we we, the United States, or we, Western civilization, provide the arms?
It's a really interesting question. Many people are very fearful. If you start arming people in Iran, you end up with a civil war, you end up with a real chaos. The Kurds in the north have at one time been planning on moving in, and they had not been moving in because I think Erdogan from Turkey didn't want the Kurds to move in. He called President Trump perhaps about that. But look, the big question, are you trying to sort this out and deal with the Iranian regime in the next few weeks or month, or are you trying to make a generational difference? And that does require changing the regime. And to do that, yes, perhaps people do have to give weapons to the opposition inside Iran.
Let me come back to this NATO point, but first I want to play this clip from Pete Hegseth. This was from about 24 hours ago about the U.S. addressing what is necessary, in his words.
As far as Russia and China, we know exactly what they're doing, what they are or are not doing. We don't have to air publicly what all of that is. But where necessary, we're addressing it, we're mitigating it, or we're confronting it head on.
Okay, now here is the headline we talked about in the Wall Street Journal. The UAE wants to force Hormuz open and is willing to join the fight. Gulf state begins effort to persuade U.S. and others to open waterway by any means necessary. I believe the UAE has taken about 2,500 hits on behalf of missiles or drones in the last 30 days.
More than Israel.
More than Israel.
More than
Remarkable
Israel.
stuff. And Iran is in a position now where they don't want their other Gulf nations to be on the offensive against them. So a lot of cross currents here. On this idea about NATO, however, the president gave this interview last night. It was published earlier this morning, saying that NATO's a paper tiger. They're nothing without the United States. He might be right about that. But remember in Trump 1.0 when he challenged NATO to increase their defense spending. And at the time, everybody was like, well, no one's ever called on our NATO leaders to go ahead and up their spending. And most of them, not all, largely have. In light of the Ukraine war, it's been a necessity. And maybe this is another way for him to prod that organization and get them to do more. As he said 24 hours ago, learn how to fight on your own.
Absolutely. Many people have said that Trump was the best thing that happened to NATO in his first administration, because look at the hundreds of billions of dollars that went to NATO. And look, you look at some of the NATO countries at the moment, you look at the UK at the moment and how low and diminished its navy has become. They're barely able to send out, flotillas at the moment. They can't send out carrier strike groups. That's because they have pulled back their defense spending over the years. They need someone to come to them and say, you have to up it. Because for too long, these countries have been saying, America is the country that will do the job for us. America's military will do it. And so, yes, if you want to put pressure on them, you have to. And is this now a responsibility of NATO? Are there countries being affected with the oil being shut down? Yes, they are. So at what point does NATO say, we are really being affected, our economies are being affected, we need to get involved? They're not willing to do that right now.
Well, they also have domestic politics of their own, where they have a population that's not necessarily supportive of Israel, and they're more fearful of Russia. Mm-hmm. And we still have the war with Ukraine, and now Ukraine is helping the Gulf states in order to defend themselves. It is very super interesting, and we are so fortunate to have you get us previewed for tonight's big speech, prime time. Thank you, Ben.
Thanks, Ben. Be sure to like and subscribe for all the Fox News latest on YouTube, and catch full shows streaming now on Fox One.